Alrighty, welcome. Thank you for joining us here on this Sunday morning. As man, a few hours have gone by and still cannot process and believe all of the chaos here that went down in a huge week number 6, where we saw 5 teams in the top 11 go down, 3 of them lose to unranked teams. Overall in the top 25, 6 teams fall victim to chaos here in week number 6. This is going to be a loaded episode here, so thank you for joining us because we have so much to break down and get into. Real concerns coming out of some of these upset losses. Which ones were flukes? Which ones were, oh boy, time to hit the panic button on about some of these teams here moving forward. We saw playoff hopes dashed already the first week of October in the college football expanded playoff. Does not matter. Few teams saw their playoff hopes absolutely eliminated just 5 or 6 games into the year. We'll tell you who those teams are. Obviously, when you have some losers, you also have some pretty impressive winners as well. We'll talk about the biggest benefactors here to the chaos as well. And of course, we got a new top 10 for you going into week number 6, or week number 7, I should say. All right, so let's dive into here the chaos first and foremost. Like we just talked about at the top, 5 of the top 11 teams go down here on Saturday, and overall 6 teams in the top 25 lose. What does it mean? First and foremost, here's what it means. It's always the least suspecting weeks in college football that bring the greatest drama and the most upsets. So now going forward, if your wife, if your significant other's nagging you, oh, let's go apple picking. Oh, let's go shopping. Let's do all this stuff. Oh, there's not many good games on it, and you won't miss anything. This is the time, especially with next weekend, with the insane matchups we have next week on the slate here. You probably thought yesterday, yeah, it's a good time. I could skip out on a few hours of college football here to go, please the wife, please the kids, and go do some honey-do stuff. No. This should be a reminder going forward. It's always the sleepiest weeks. Yeah, okay, Alabama, Vandy, that'll be a blowout. Michigan on the road at Washington, the Wolverines will take care of it. USC at Minnesota, Tennessee at Arkansas, nothing to worry about here. I'm just going to go out and kind of live my life. I won't miss much. This was a reminder. Woo! You do not sleep on college football because, boy, oh boy, the second you think it's going to be a chalky weekend, and look, I was guilty of it myself. I try to find some upsets this weekend in Hicks 5-minute picks, which you can find, of course, right on this YouTube channel every single Thursday morning. I couldn't find one. I could not find one here. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I saw Vanderbilt coming, Arkansas coming, Minnesota coming. That's for sure. But this is why, for me, college football is the greatest. But okay, besides just the fact that a non-suspecting, otherwise you thought was going to be a chalky college football weekend turns into the weekend from hell from a lot of these top teams, what it also shows, and really what it proves, is this. In 2024, there are no dominant teams in college football. There is no tier 1 and everybody else. The elite teams and then a gap and then everybody else. Like we've seen in college football now for the last 25, 30 years, right? There's always that exclusive club at the top. This is the first time in a long time I can remember it is truly wide open. There is no elite group of teams. There is no 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that are above everybody else. This college football season is truly wide open, and which should mean, and which should serve as a lesson for those that were fretting about NIL and the transfer portal and, the college football playoffs going to have 12 teams. We're watering down the regular season. Look what it's producing. Look at what those changes now have brought. Everybody thought, the teams at the top would just get richer and the teams in the middle and the bottom are just going to evaporate. The middle class is in college football will be wiped out. What do you say now? What is there to say now as you're looking at Alabama go down to Vandy, Tennessee go down to Arkansas, USC go down to Minnesota, number 9 Mizzou get blown out by A&M? This is showing to you there are no elite teams in college football. These changes that were made are working. They are good for the sport. They are bringing now chaos and life and even more belief and strength to the regular season, because these games now matter. Going forward here, picking up the pieces from week 6 moving forward, the regular seasons for a lot of these teams all of a sudden just became insanely more important. These changes have been great, but I think in the bigger picture here, for at least this season specifically, There is no dominant team. It is truly wide open here. And if you are a team, if you're a fan of a team in the top 25, there's a real belief you can have of either making the playoff, winning a playoff game, or making a run that otherwise you thought maybe even 2 weeks ago was not possible. Because let's dive into some of these games here, some of these outcomes, and what it means going forward. We got to start with the big one here. First and foremost, Vandy taking down Alabama, just like we all thought. Now, I want to look at this from Vandy's perspective first, because I'm an optimist, so let's look at the positive first here. This was for me, this is what makes college football the best sport on this planet. It's not just the fact that Vanderbilt on any given Saturday can beat the number one team in the country. It's also the fact of how they did it and the emotions you saw afterwards. If you didn't see it, I urge you. It's all over social media. It's very easy to find. I put it on my social media as well. Ryan_Hakey and the number 3 on Twitter. You can find it. Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt's quarterback, after the game on the SEC Network, gave one of the most heartfelt, genuine, emotional responses in a post-game interview you will ever watch. He just beat the number one team in the country. He's felt like he's been disrespected his entire career. And to pull off a win in which truly, even the most ardent Vanderbilt fans, truly, come on, let's believe here. Well, let's be serious here for a second. No one actually believed Vandy had a chance, let alone a real possibility to win this game. So you saw the emotion pouring out, the cursing, almost like the shock of just like, we actually did it. And he's processing in real time what that means. It was an awesome interview he conducted on SEC Network. Fans around him are going crazy. His family's going crazy. It was so cool. And credit to Diego Pavia, who, again, since coming over to Vandy, has brought a true spark to this program. I mean, this is a guy that you get a nice win here in week number 1 against Vatek, who then after the game felt disrespected because he's been called a poor man's Trace McSorley, which, look at the Penn State guy. Trace won some big games here. He beat Ohio State. They won a Big Ten title. They went to some big bowl games, the Rose Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl. That's not a slight, Diego, please. But in all honesty, he models his game after Johnny Manziel. And look, isn't it fitting, right? A decade after Johnny Manziel went into Alabama and beat the Tide and really kind of put him and Texas A&M that year on the map. What happens then just about a little over a decade later? Diego Pavia, the guy that he models his game after, goes at home and beats Alabama. It is so college football. It's beautiful. But he was tremendous in this game. Over 300 total yards of offense, 2 touchdowns. Just as important as the 2 touchdowns, 0 turnovers. Did not give Alabama's defense any extra opportunities to win. But this weekend, I think, will go down first and foremost as Vanderbilt's weekend. 0-60. 0-60 in their program's history against top 5 teams. They've beaten Alabama 1 time in their well, we won't say storied history, but in their long tradition, we'll say, of at least playing football. It's been rough, and Vanderbilt has been a doormat for every SEC team, at least every top team in the SEC, for basically the entirety of their existence. So that scene yesterday was so cool. It was awesome. Seeing the fans rush the court. If you saw on social media, it was so cool as well. They paraded the goalposts down Broadway. It was truly a scene from a movie. And had me also thinking here, by the way, as well, when you think about, again, Vanderbilt getting their first top 5 victory, when you think about just beating the number 1 team in the country, I think it helps that it's Alabama as well on your home field. Those may be the most valuable goalposts I could ever imagine in college football. Like if I was a Vanderbilt fan, if I was a bar owner down in Nashville, I would pay almost anything to have a piece of those goalposts in my bar, in my house, whatever it may be. Like those, when you think about, can Vanderbilt now can build off this? Can they routinely be David and upset Goliath? Probably not. Probably not. This was one of those moments that they will never forget for the rest of their lives. And you see those goalposts getting paraded down Broadway. I'm thinking, I would do whatever it takes. I'd go to Home Depot, if they even have a Home Depot down there on Broadway. I'm not sure. It's a lot of bars, never been. Love to go. I can't imagine there's a lot of home goods areas, buildings down in that strip where it's mostly just getting tuned up as much as possible and listen to country music. But hey, you can get a saw wherever you may get it. Saw a piece of that goalpost off, keep it, because those things are valuable as hell. That will be a memory no fan will ever forget. I put the value of those goalposts up with Tennessee's from 2 years ago when they beat Alabama and threw them in the river. I would have bought a scuba suit to go down there in that river and try to go dig out some of those goalposts to keep as a keepsake here. That will be a memory of a lifetime, no doubt about it. So very happy, obviously, for Vanderbilt. This is one of those moments that truly will last a lifetime. Diego Pavia, he could suck the rest of his career. And I hope he does. And he showed promise. He's a really cool character, great personality, and a good player. He's a fun, legitimately good football player. The best quarterback Vandy's had easily since Jay Cutler. But even if nothing else happens in his career, he will always have this moment. He will always have last night. I'm very, very happy for him. But now when you look past the Vanderbilt side and say, okay, let's look at Alabama here. You just went from you almost went from collapsing against Georgia, holding on with an incredible back and forth game, to now getting stomped and beaten by Vandy. Where the hell did the Crimson Tide go forward here? Was this just a classic laying an egg hangover game? Is there a real concern here? I have real concern about Alabama going forward, and it's on the defensive side of the football. This defense is not good. It is not good, and I don't see an area or a way they can improve as the rest of this season continues. That defense is going to be a problem for the rest of the year for the Crimson Tide. Look at what happened here in this game. They allowed 40 points to Vandy, which, again, we just kind of lamented, right, the poor history of Vanderbilt football. But let's dive in a little bit deeper here. Alabama allowed 40 points yesterday. I went back and looked at how many games did Vanderbilt play where we can add up their point total against Alabama to equal the 40 points they scored yesterday. I went back. You have to add up the last 7 matchups between Alabama and Vanderbilt for Vanderbilt to score a combined 40 points like they did yesterday. It took 7 games. And it goes all the way back to 2001 was when this started for Vanderbilt to equal 40 combined points they scored against Alabama. And in 23 years, erase that and match that total there in one game. So you gave up 40 points to Vanderbilt this season. But also now let's couple that with the fact that you look back at last week. Actually, before we get to last week, a few other stats I want to mention here really fast. Sorry. Vandy in this game on 3rd and 4th down combined went 13 of 19. Couldn't get a stop. When it mattered, couldn't get off the field. Also, Vandy, 0 turnovers. So Bama couldn't force any sort of issues here, create any short fields, create any sort of momentum flip, as Vanderbilt was able to do that. And no turnovers forced. 13 of 19 on 3rd and 4th down meant Vanderbilt's offense was on the field the entire game. Vandy held the ball for 42 minutes. 42 minutes in this game. They truly wore down Alabama. I may clip that and say that because I don't think I will ever say that sentence again. Vanderbilt's offense wore down Alabama's defense. That is insane. That is insane. But that is a concern about the Tide because now you go back to the Georgia game. And obviously the first half was great. Second half was a disaster. Let's look at the second half of the Georgia game and obviously this full game against Vandy. The last 6 quarters, Alabama's defense has allowed 67 points combined. They've allowed Georgia and Vanderbilt on 3rd and 4th down combined to go 22 of 34. And in the 15 combined drives, not counting kneel downs at the end of the half or end of game, Vanderbilt has scored, Vanderbilt and Georgia, I should say, have scored on a combined 10 of 15 drives. Alabama's defense is problematic. And even the one of the few stops they got was that interception late against Carson Beck. Georgia moved the ball right down the field and got an interception in the end zone to end it. Alabama's defense is a real concern. Remember, they still have to play Tennessee on the road, by the way. They still have to play LSU, which I know they've been a little sporadic offensively, but both of those teams, they could score. They could put up some points. And right now, Alabama's defense gives you zero faith whatsoever. They can get consistent stops. This is a problem. I don't worry too much about Alabama's offense and Jalen Milroe. I still believe that they'll be fine. And again, I think part of what we saw yesterday is the fact that they just couldn't get on the field. They didn't get enough opportunities because they barely had the ball because Vanderbilt just hogged it the whole game because their defense couldn't get off the field. That defense is a concern now moving forward when you still look at who's on the schedule and then who Alabama could play in a potential playoff matchup here. So that defense, this is not a one game write it off. Okay, it's college football, 18 to 22-year-old kids, weird stuff happens. This defense is a real concern now for Alabama, and they got to figure it out fast here, because if not, I mean, there's no real belief right now of Alabama winning a national title with this defense so far and how they're playing. Womack has really got to, their defense coordinator has really got to turn things around here and turn things around ASAP. Now let's get into this team here. They didn't lose, and I'm sure most of you, including myself, your hand up, did not see a lot of this game. Miami, late night, and now ACC after dark, holds on to beat Cal 39-38. And while Miami got the win, while they're still undefeated, and I think right now when you look at how many teams went down in the top 25, even if your team played poorly, hey, a win is a win. That's all that matters. There is real concern now with Miami going forward, because this is now the second week in a row against an inferior opponent where they have played really sloppy football and they have gotten truly lucky, and you could maybe even say undeserving of winning the game. Last week, go back to Vatek, right? That infamous, now I would say, missed call where they ruled that Hail Mary initially a touchdown and then changed it to incomplete. I don't know how there was enough video there to change that call. And now you look at Miami. Again, they were down at one point in this game in the third quarter, 35-10. But they were down 35-10 before Cam Ward drove down the field 4 straight times for touchdowns to save the bacon of Miami. But you can't continually now flirt with inferior opponents and expect to get rewarded. You are going to get got soon. And when you look at right now the state of college football, maybe the ACC will be one of the biggest benefactors here, because we thought before the year started, yeah, the winner of that conference will get in. That will probably be a one-bid league. Maybe it'll still be a one-bid conference when it comes to the college football playoff here. But if that's going to be the case, you look at how Clemson's turned it around. We'll get to them here in a little bit later on in the show, and how Miami's playing. If you're in Miami, even though your schedule is not very tough and the most challenging games you have left, I mean, Florida State is gone now, but at least some of the biggest games they have left are at home. They're really, for the most part, now unchallenged throughout the rest of the year. They'll play Clemson until at least the ACC title game. But you can't keep on digging these holes like they were against Vatek, down by 10 in the fourth quarter, down by 25 in the third quarter against Cal, and expect to win. And also, let's just be real here, rely on and get bailed out by the ACC referee crew. Again, we talked about the Hail Mary 2 weeks ago. I have no idea how they overturned that, what was initially ruled a touchdown into an incomplete pass. If I was Vatek, I would still be pissed about that. And then last night, as Miami's trying to make the comeback here, there should have been a targeting call on Miami that would have given Cal not only a first down, but would have helped them salt away the clock and basically end the game. And I despise targeting. I think it is by far the worst rule in sports. Not because I promote head-to-head contact. That's not it. I don't even mind the 15-yard flag. The ejection part is by far the worst part of this rule, where you could change the game on a bang-bang play, and sometimes in which the offensive player initiates putting his head down and puts his head in harm's way, and the defender was doing the right thing but just couldn't prepare for it. Anyway, that should have been a targeting call. Was not. Miami got a gift. To their credit, they took advantage of the gift, went down for a touchdown, scored late to win the game. But you can't continue here to turn the ball over, make sloppy mistakes, not get stops on defense, and then expect to come out unscathed. And if you're in Miami, again, you now have to start looking at, we have to win the conference. Because, again, I told you about Miami's schedule. It's not that difficult. It's not that hard. So if you don't win the ACC, part of the reason why we've been talking about it as a one-bid league is because what's their resume going to look like? Like, let me just bring up Miami's schedule here for you really fast here just to show you. If they don't win the ACC and they are 11-1, 11-2, you tell me which win jumps out. It says, you know what, yeah, that's enough to get them in the college football playoff here. Again, they had a nice win at Florida. They beat Vatek at home, unranked. They beat just Cal on the road, unranked. They still have Louisville on the road, who's now going to be an unranked team after losing to SMU. Florida State stinks. Duke's been a nice surprise, but again, it is Duke. At Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, at Syracuse. What win is jumping out to you that says, oh, that's an impressive win? If you can't beat Clemson in the ACC title game, Miami's playoff hopes here could be in jeopardy. They got to clean it up. They absolutely have to clean it up here because this flirtation with death they've had the last 2 weeks, it's going to get them pretty soon here if they do not iron out these real flaws they have in their game that have popped up against inferior opponents. Speaking of flaws in the game against inferior opponents, what the hell is USC doing? What are they doing? Losing to Minnesota in the fashion that they did 24-17? Lincoln Riley. Look, going into the year, I did not know what to expect from USC. I called USC the biggest enigma in college football because I could have seen them going 11-1, 10-2, and okay, this is a really good team here. This is Lincoln Riley's back. Quarterback doesn't matter. It's automatic how good this offense is going to be. It's plug and play. The defense is better. And all of a sudden now in the first year in the Big Ten, we're talking about a playoff team in USC. I also could have saw them going 7-5 and said, yeah, you know what? Things just continue. Poor defense. Caleb Williams is no longer there. So even though Miller Moss, it's the system is built for the quarterback to have success. You don't have a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. Maybe Lincoln Riley is not as great as we think he is. I had truly zero read on USC. And honestly, after the first 6 weeks of the season, I still have no read on this team. They really impressed with that win over LSU week number 1, where they showed toughness more than anything else. Forget the offense at the end and Miller Moss making some clutch plays and the receivers, making some incredible catches. That run defense, stuffing LSU, getting stops late, proved to me, oh, okay. I mean, the offense you always feel good about with USC and Lincoln Riley, but now this defense is tough. Maybe let's watch out here. And then all of a sudden, you lose at USC, in which you can't stop the run whatsoever. You turn the ball over. You turn the ball over again against Wisconsin. Get lucky, though, because Wisconsin stinks. And now you turn the ball over now for a third straight game and lose to a Minnesota team that's one of the worst teams in the Big Ten that has zero going for them. That just were blown out in the second half by Iowa, whose offense sucks. What the hell is USC? What is Lincoln Riley doing? One of the biggest concerns here for USC is the fact that they keep turning the ball over. This was a game in which they had 3 turnovers in it, also missed field goal. But now this is also, you look back at the last 3 games, which they've lost 2 out of 3, they have turned the ball over 8 times now in the last 3 games, all against teams that they are better than. I don't understand it. This team is beating themselves. And this was a game, by the way, again, when you look at it against Minnesota, not only are they one of the worst Big Ten teams in the conference, USC had balance. Like everything USC needed to do in order to win this game was there. They ran the ball really well. Woody Marks had over 130 rushing yards and a touchdown. So it's not like USC was one-dimensional and Minnesota was just sitting on the pass and it made things tough for Miller Moss. You had legitimate balance for the first time in a long time here with USC. And that still wasn't enough. I mean, they ran as a team for 6.2 yards per carry. If Miller Moss can't keep the ball safe and have an explosive passing day when you're running the ball for 6.2 yards per carry, when are you going to have success? When are you going to really turn it around? He had just 200 yards passing, 2 interceptions. This was the second awful loss now in 3 weeks for USC that is inexplicable, where they beat themselves. And that is on Lincoln Riley. That is on this offense. Coach them up to where you can keep the ball safe. I mean, and with still Penn State on the schedule, with Notre Dame on the schedule, these concerns for USC are real. How they're losing these games are unacceptable. And it's trending right now to be an 8-4, 7-5 season for SC, which is a massive disappointment. Lincoln Riley's got to figure this out fast, man. He was brought to USC to win national titles. And outside of 2022, I think they had a real chance. If Caleb Williams did not pop his hamstring there in the Pac-12 title game against Utah, and everything went to crap after that, even though the defense was awful, still you had Caleb Williams carrying you. Outside of 2022, this team has been average. Nothing more than that. They've been an average team under Lincoln Riley for the majority of his tenure so far. That is concerning. All right. So, number one, again, appreciate you tuning in right now. It is Ryan Hickey with you here live on YouTube. We're doing this every single Sunday, reacting to craziness, in this case, in college football here from week number 6. And while a lot of you thought and said, oh, the 12-team playoff, it's going to water down the regular season. Everybody's getting in. A 2-loss team, a 3-loss team, does not matter. It's just one free-for-all. Everyone's getting in. Regular season doesn't matter. Well, how about this? We are now sitting here after the first weekend in October. Last week, I told you Ole Miss's playoff hopes are dashed. I still believe that because Ole Miss can't beat and Lane Kiffin can't beat any good team. So it's still Georgia left on the schedule. I don't believe right now Ole Miss has what it takes to has either the resume to make the playoff if they lose to Georgia or has the ability to beat the Dogs at home later this year. So we are already looking at teams being eliminated from the college football playoff. And I think right now, after week 6, cross 3 teams off, dead, gone. Their playoff hopes are officially dashed. First team, Mizzou. Look, they were paper tigers, man. And I got suckered in. I got suckered into picking Mizzou to make the playoff. Not because I was a big Brady Cook guy. I'm really not. It's because their schedule was so easy. Where outside of a trip to Tuscaloosa later on this year, they were going to be favored in 11 out of 12 games. And so if you're sitting there at 11-1, you are probably getting in the playoff in the SEC. You're probably in the SEC title game at that point. So I thought Mizzou, with Luther Burden as at least going into the year, the best receiver in college football, that's not been the case since. You had still a really good receiver room at Mizzou. Brady Cook is good enough to at least, keep this team going here. The defense, even though you didn't lose your defense coordinator going to LSU, I thought would be just competent enough. But again, that schedule should have made it easy for Mizzou to walk into the playoff. And now those hopes are officially dashed. They are dead. You got boat raced, embarrassed, pants, whatever adjective you want to use here to describe what A&M did. Actually, a verb, not adjective. Apologies to my second grade English teachers there on that misuse of the word. Whatever verb you want to describe to discuss what A&M did to Mizzou works. But now you look at Mizzou coming out of this game here. They, I think, number one, were proven to be frauds all year long because even in the games they played against Power 4 opponents, Boston College, very sloppy back and forth game, lucky to win that one. Lucky to win Vanderbilt, which at the time was, what the hell is going on here? You need double overtime to beat Vandy? Now, that win looks a tiny bit better, but let's not get crazy here. It's still Vanderbilt. That's not going to go down as an impressive victory here. So you skated by the likes of BC, Vanderbilt here by the skin of your teeth, and now the first real opponent you play, your first road game of the year, you get destroyed. How is this team going to be a playoff team? How can you sit here and truly say Mizzou is one of the 12 teams that were one of the 12 best teams in the country? You can't, because they're going to Alabama, and even though what we just said about their defense, which is a real concern, and them losing right now to Vanderbilt, I still think there's no chance in hell that we're talking about this Mizzou team going into Tuscaloosa and winning this game. So now when you look at least Mizzou going forward here, who they have to beat, who can they get impressive wins on their schedule against to impress the committee to make a playoff berth here at 10-2 even, which I think is when you lose this way to A&M, by the way, I don't think it's an assumption that they will beat Auburn, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas and win all of those games. I think that the benefit of the doubt for Mizzou is out the window now. But let's just say they do run the table here. And let's just say to have a real chance at an argument of making the playoff here, they lose to Alabama, but win the rest of their games. I just told you, is a win over Auburn at home going to get you into the College Football Playoff? Hell no. Oklahoma? No. They won't be ranked by the time they come to Columbia here in the beginning of November. At South Carolina, at Mississippi State, one of the worst teams in college football, period. Arkansas, I know they just got a nice win over Tennessee here. We'll get to them in a second. There are not any teams on Mizzou's schedule right now, even if they're 10-2, that says, yeah, they're deserving. Not at all. They don't have the resume. They were exposed as frauds in College Station on Saturday. Their playoff hopes dashed, along with USC. USC's dead. 2 wins. Again, 8 turnovers now in the last 3 games. I don't say they're beating Penn State this upcoming weekend. I don't say they're beating Notre Dame later on in the year. Notre Dame, that actually stinks. They're a loser here as well in this because the one game they had left, at least at the moment here, that could really impress the committee was against USC, and now that does take a hit here in terms of their resume. But USC's playoff hopes are dead. There's no reason to believe right now a turnaround is coming, that they can beat the Nittany Lions, beat the Irish as well, go 10-2, run the table. They are done, and so is Michigan. This was a really interesting spread. Michigan, a top 10 team on the road at an unranked Washington. They were underdog. Vegas knows. Vegas was right. Washington is good. I know there's no reason to watch the Huskies for the most part if you're a national college football fan with all they've lost from last year's national title game appearing team. But they're still tough. Jed Fish has brought toughness to the defense. They could still pass the ball at a high rate with Will Rogers coming over from Mississippi State. This team is just solid. They're a solid team that's a difficult out for any team they play. And Michigan learned the hard way. They are too one-dimensional. Michigan is too one-dimensional right now to make a run, go 10-2, upset Oregon, who comes to town here in a few weeks, upset Ohio State at the end of the year on the road. Those hopes are gone. And it's because Michigan right now can't throw the football. They really can't run the ball well or consistently either. They've lost too much. They lost all 5 offensive linemen. You lose Blake Corum. You lose your best receiver, lose your quarterback. Like, they just lost too much. And what I didn't understand, and I like the Sharon Moore hire. I think he's still going to be a really good coach. But one of the criticisms I have for Sharon Moore so far this year is why he assumed that everything will stay the same despite all of the changes that happened. That was the big motto this offseason for Michigan. Everything's different, but everything's the same. We got Sharon Moore. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to run the damn ball down your throat. We're going to play great defense. We're going to keep the identity of Michigan the last 3 years that gave us one of the best 3 years, if not the best 3-year stretch in Michigan football history. We're going to keep that going here, and we're not going to lose a beat. Well, did you not realize how much you lost? That you were able to run the ball and play great defense because you had great players that are no longer there? Again, you lost 5 offensive linemen, all 5 starters, gone. Lost your quarterback, lost your running back, lost your receiver, lost some really good defensive players. How are you going to expect to keep that same identity and have sustained success when the players, the reason why you had so much success, are gone? Well, now you're paying the price. I don't know if it was hubris. I don't know if truly nobody wanted to go there. But how Michigan didn't actually get a real quarterback to town is, 1, befuddling, but 2, they're paying the price for it. They made another quarterback switch. The 3rd quarterback now to appear for Michigan in the game was Jack Tuttle, well-traveled veteran. And he looked the best of any of the 3 quarterbacks so far between him, Alex Orji, Davis Warren. He was the best. And we are talking about a guy that threw for 98 yards in the game. That's what we're talking about. That's how bad Michigan's pass offense has been. This was the 4th straight game they passed for fewer than 134 yards. They can't figure it out. They stink. This is a 7-5 team. Now, their playoff hopes to me were not even existent before the season. But because they had a top 10 number next to their name, they were in the conversation. And you beat USC in a game which I thought they had no chance of winning. Credit to them. Got lucky. I think USC beat themselves. But hey, they won the game. That's what matters. Go on the road, turn the ball over, and again, struggle to throw the football against Washington. Michigan's playoff hopes, dead. So first week of October, we saw 3 teams have their playoff hopes officially wiped away. Mizzou, USC, Michigan. On the flip side here, let's look at winners. Which teams benefited the most? Which teams were propped up by all the chaos that we saw go down yesterday? First one is Texas, because their path now to the SEC title game, their path to getting a bye in the first round of the playoff just became easier, and they literally did nothing. They sat on their couch and watched the world burn in front of them. Because now you look at Alabama going down, Georgia obviously going down last week, but also not looking that impressive or dominant against Auburn on Saturday. By the way, I can't believe this. Georgia's defense against Auburn's offense, where Peyton Thorne was giving away turnovers like Oprah during Christmas time, giving away gifts to the audience. They didn't get 1 turnover. They had 15 turnovers Auburn has given away so far this season, and that number stayed at 15 after this game. That's concerning. That is concerning after what we saw last week from Georgia's defense. So the number one team in the country, a team that I think you were directly competing against and argue you could say 1-1A in the conference, they lost to an unranked team with now a defensive problem. Georgia, again, did not look much better and did not look like they truly learned some lessons that burned them last week against Auburn. Tennessee's loss, I think, now raises some questions about their offense and how consistently explosive now they could be. All of a sudden, with 3 of the top 4 teams already having a loss on their record now, going into really where the true college football season starts. If you're Texas, you're saying, you're making this easy for me. First year in the Big Bad SEC, and now all of a sudden Bama loses, Georgia loses, Tennessee loses, Mizzou got erased off the face of the surface of the earth yesterday. They can afford a loss, Texas can, and waltz their way to Atlanta. They got very lucky. Also, by the way, they're getting healthier now. It seems like Quinn Ewers will be back for Red River next week. So Arch Manning did a good job holding down the fort, but now you get your QB1 back healthy while everyone else around you is crumbling. Yeah. Texas, their path to the SEC title game, their path to an SEC championship, their path to a bye, and most likely the number 1 seed in all of the playoff just got a whole hell of a lot easier, and they did nothing about it. Texas, I think, one of the big winners here from week number 6 and all the chaos. But you know who also is a big winner that we as being the general college football loving, watching community, that we have to truly talk about when it comes to the college football playoff as a real playoff contender? The Hoosiers. That's right. Indiana, who now is the only bowl-eligible team at 6-0. They wiped, or I should say, let's put it this way, because it was kind of a close game. They ran away from Northwestern late, won a double-digit game, scored 40 points again. They've scored 40 points in every game so far they have played. They have not played a challenging schedule whatsoever. Their most impressive win is probably last week against Maryland, but Maryland, Northwestern, UCLA, Charlotte, Western Illinois. Look, I'm not sitting here telling you they have run the gauntlet so far and have the best resume in college football. But when you look at this Indiana team, they've done 2 things so far. Number 1, they have beaten every team they're supposed to beat handily. We just talked about some of the chaos here where a lot of these teams, Tennessee was supposed to win easily. Bama supposed to wipe the floor with Vanderbilt. USC was supposed to cruise against Minnesota. A lot of these games that we thought were surefire locks turned out to instead ensue chaos. Indiana, to their credit so far, they've really not put themselves in a situation where they could even be on the verge of being upset. They have blown out everybody. They've made the winning plays. This offense led by Curtis Rourke and coached by Kirk Cinetti has been tremendous. But now you look going forward here with Michigan losing, with USC losing. I think when you look at the top 3 of Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon in the Big Ten, that 4th team is occupied now by Indiana. This is legit, even though the competition so far would suggest otherwise. And you look at their schedule, again, Indiana has a very favorable schedule where they do play Michigan at home. They do go on the road at Ohio State later in the year. But going forward now, the next 6 games, outside of the Ohio State game, they will be favored in every single game. And we should be talking about an 11-1 Indiana team, probably, maybe, in Indy for the Big Ten title game. And if you can play Ohio State close on the road in the shoe on November 23rd, second to last game of the year, how are we not talking about Indiana as a playoff team this year? Where some of the SEC teams that we thought would be in, like Mizzou and Ole Miss right now, are spitting the bit and losing to teams they have no business losing to. We have to be talking about Indiana. They are a legitimate playoff team. This team is real. The belief that Kirk Cinetti has brought, the buy-in is there. This team is good. This team is really, really good, especially offensively. Indiana, man, they're a team. They're a player. They're one of the biggest benefactors from all the chaos here because we will be talking about an 11-1, maybe team playing for a conference championship here in the first weekend of December. They're a playoff contender. No doubt about it. And I would say right now, it would be an upset I think if we're talking about Indiana not in the 12-team college football playoff, they have the schedule. They should be there bare minimum at 11-1. And while they may not have an impressive wow win, again, their best win could be either Nebraska coming up here or against Michigan a little bit later on in the season, both of which, okay, not jump off the page great. But if you are handling your business and blowing every team out like you should, and so far they've done that, and you play Ohio State close here, they're in the playoff. They are in the playoff in year number 1 of Kirk Cignetti. That is an awesome story so far. And they have gone from a great story to now a real playoff contender. Indiana's made that jump here. They're no longer just, oh, that's so cute. Look what they're doing over there. No, they're real. They're legit. This team is going to the college football playoff. They were one of the biggest benefactors, I should say, from the chaos here in week number 6. Also, Clemson. Easy to write them off. Easy to forget about them after a laughable performance against Georgia there in week number 1. But this team has played a lot better, a lot cleaner since that Georgia game. Granted, the level of competition has been nowhere close to what they faced against the Bulldogs there in week number 1. They've gotten the benefit of a very easy schedule. But to their credit, they're taking care of business. And like Indiana, they are beating these inferior teams to a pulp, just burying them. Now, yesterday against Florida State, not the prettiest, not the greatest. But again, you don't have Miami on your schedule. So the only team they have the rest of the way that could be ranked by the time they play them is at Pitt later on in the year. That's it. If you can win that game at Pitt, we're talking about Clemson at 11-1, probably facing Miami in Charlotte for the ACC title. And if we get another upset or two in the SEC or the Big Ten, the ACC overall could be one of the biggest winners here of this week 6 chaos, because we could be talking about the ACC conference as a 2-bid league, getting more than one team in, which I don't think nobody thought before the year was possible. Now it's a real possibility with how Clemson is playing. And right now, if they can get their act together and just play cleaner football for a full 4 quarters, again, with the outline of how this season has gone so far, I think it's realistic and likely we're talking about Clemson and Miami both on the college football playoff. Clemson, I think, was a big, big, big time benefactor here from all the chaos. Okay, 2 things before we do get out of here. And again, thank you for joining us. We're doing this every Sunday morning, reacting to all of the craziness. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, great timing, because next week we're going to have a great one here with some of the biggest games. Oregon, Ohio State is the headliner. You have Penn State, USC, you got Red River, you got Ole Miss, LSU as well, and what seems to be like a playoff eliminator type of game. It's going to be a great, great, great weekend here. Before we wrap up this little episode here with my new top 10 going into week number 7, I want to give some love to 2 teams that maybe you don't realize, but are now really starting to make their case for relevancy here in college football. And that is Army, Navy, both with dominant victories yesterday. Don't look now. The the Black Knights, the Midshipmen, both 5-0. The first time Army and Navy have both started the year 5-0. You ready for this? Since 1945. 1945 was the last time both teams started 5-0. This has been a great, great story. But now, again, kind of similar to what we just talked about with Indiana. They are soon going to go from a great story to, is this a playoff team? Because right now you look at Army and Navy's schedules. They're very similar. They both play Notre Dame at neutral sites. Army at Yankee Stadium. Navy's playing them at MetLife Stadium. Dump. Anyway, I digress. If you can, look, Notre Dame is going to be thankful for that because they need right now all the resume boost they can get. But if Army or Navy, one of them, can beat Notre Dame, the loser, let's say if one loses that game, they can win the rest of their games, because outside of when they face each other at the end of the year and outside of facing Notre Dame, both Army and Navy will be favored in every other game they play. So 5-0, 12 games, that's 7, minus Notre Dame, minus playing each other. That's 5 games that each of them should be favored in now going down the stretch. And one of them obviously will be favored in this game. So for one of them, it'll be 6 out of 7 games you're favored in. If we're talking about right now, 11-1 Army, 11-1 Navy here, maybe 12-1 Navy if they can win the AAC. Look out. We're talking about a real playoff team here. If you can beat Notre Dame, beat the other service academy, this is a real, you want to talk about stealing a bid from the group of 5? One of these two teams could do it. Like, legitimately could do it here. Boise State better watch out, and they better not slip up. Because right now, this group of 5 race, just like right now, I think the overall race for a national title is wide open. And I think just like Indiana, Army and Navy right now are slowly going from great story to real playoff contender. Their offenses are something to be reckoned with. They are both really good, explosive. They got great quarterback play. They don't turn the ball over. They have been just methodically beating every team they play down. Keep an eye on Army. Keep an eye on Navy. They're making some noise here. And especially when they both play Notre Dame later on in the year, that could be, again, for one of them, if they can pull off an upset and win that game, we're talking about maybe the group of 5 winner coming by either Army or Navy. How great would that be? That would be very, very cool here. All right, let's finish up with this here. Top 10. How the hell do we organize? How do we organize right now the top 10 teams in the country after what we just saw? All right, let me break it down for you here, and let's, number one, let me get the graphic up here to make sure that, boom, there we are. We're up and running. I'll give you my top 10, and let's explain why. Number 1, 2, and 3, I think are obvious and easy. Every single poll, whether you do your own, whether it's the AP, the coaches poll, these 3 teams will all be the same going to week 7. Texas at 1, Ohio State at 2, Oregon 3. It's easy. It's a no-brainer. It's very simple. All 3 teams either were off or won. All 3 teams are undefeated. And I think you can confidently say right now, after what we saw yesterday, those 3 teams in order are the 3 best teams right now in college football. Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, boom, 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 1, 2, 3. This is where it gets interesting. I have Georgia 4, in part because, okay, let's look at what happened last week, right? You lose to a top 5 team on the road. Again, the first half was an absolute disaster. They deserve credit for making it a game, obviously ultimately losing, but even though Alabama beat them, for at least this week, why I still think Alabama deserves, I should say why Georgia deserves the benefit of the doubt here is because Alabama lost a way worse game. Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. Georgia at least lost to Alabama on the road by a touchdown. Even though, again, they didn't look great against Auburn, I think if you're Alabama now, and usually this is my thought process here. I, first and foremost, when making these rankings here, calculate and weigh impressive wins more than bad losses. That's what, at least, and when it comes to my weighting system, I rather reward you for who you beat than reward you for losing a close game. With that said, obviously, every circumstance is different. And in this specific scenario here, you can't lose to Vanderbilt, in my opinion, and go unpunished. You can't lose to Vanderbilt as a massive favorite. I don't care about the hangover game from last week. I don't care. You can't lose to Vanderbilt in that fashion and expect to still be ranked higher than the team you beat. Not this week. Georgia, to me, is number 4 right now. Then I have Penn State at 5. Bama drops from number 1 all the way to number 6. They got to earn it now. To get above Georgia, that loss to Vanderbilt was so bad. They have to earn jumping ahead of Georgia by getting an impressive win. Again, they play at Tennessee, at LSU. They have plenty of chances here still on their schedule to get some marquee victories, and I think they will. I'm not overall panicking about Alabama in terms of them missing the playoff or being a fraud or being nowhere near as good as we saw them last week against Georgia. Defense is concerning. I think they'll figure it out and they'll get there, but they have to earn it now after such a bad loss to Vanderbilt. So that's why I have Georgia ahead of Alabama. That loss was just so bad. They have to make another statement in order to jump above the dogs in my rankings, at least to get back there and up over Georgia. So Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, 1, 2, 3. Georgia, 4. Penn State, 5. Really their first true test here for the Nittany Lions on the road at USC. Obviously, now that win's going to take a hit. So if you're the Nittany Lions, you not only have to win, you got to win convincingly. You have to win convincingly here against USC when they do go to Southern Cal on Saturday. Bama 6. Here's where it gets fun. 7, 8, 9, 10. I had a tough time putting these teams in order. Here they are. Indiana 7, Miami 8, Clemson 9, Tennessee 10. Here's why Indiana is 7 in the country in my rankings. Because with what we just saw with college football, where so many easy, we thought guaranteed wins did not happen, even though Indiana to this point has beaten nobody. You know what they have done? They've taken care of business and taken care of business convincingly each and every week. They have rarely found themselves in a close game in the fourth quarter. And when they have, 2 weeks ago against Maryland, even a little bit last week against Northwestern, they have answered the bell and put that team away. Put them away in the fourth quarter. They have had little to no drama so far this season. And so when you are taking care of business, when you are beating teams you should beat convincingly and handling, and when we just saw the opposite of that happen here, where 6 teams in the top 25 lost, 5 of them being to unranked teams, yeah, I'm going to reward you for taking care of business and doing what you have to do. So with all the chaos we have seen, but none of it coming from Indiana, I don't care that right now they play nobody. For me, they are 7th in the country. That is, to me, that's deserving of their ranking, partly based on them, partly based on right now the chaos everywhere else. Miami at 8, didn't move them down one spot here compared to last week, but just they won the games. Again, a little concerned with how lucky they've gotten the last 2 weeks. That luck will run out very quickly if they don't turn things around. But you play the games to win. They did win. They'll stay there at number 8. Clemson at 9, Tennessee 10. Again, the Tigers, I'm not buying into Clemson as like a real playoff threat. Like if they make it, like I'm not sitting here telling you they're going to win a game or push any good team. But right now, again, just like Indiana, when you're beating bad teams handily and you're not making really any, I'm playing around at all, I'll reward you for that. And I'll put Tennessee at 10 here. And they still have a good convincing win over NC State early in the year, neutral site. They beat Oklahoma pretty good on the road, and they're going to have chances here to wipe away this Arkansas loss. Bad loss. You got to get the offense going here. But when it comes to like who can I put at number 10, right? Look at Tennessee. Look at Ole Miss. I look at LSU. Michigan, no. USC, no. Notre Dame, no. Like you look around, and like there's not many true candidates. There are not many teams you feel actually good about right now putting in that 10 spot. So Tennessee, I'll still leave in the top 10 despite a brutal loss to Arkansas, which your offense scored 14 points. Wow. And that, by the way, I did not mention this so far. I'm going to curse here. So sorry for kids that are watching. I'll give you a little heads up. What the fuck were they doing that last play of the game? You got to put the ball in the end zone. Nico, I understand you're a freshman here making his first season as a starter. What are you doing? How, if you're Josh Heupel, are you not drilling in his head, get the ball in the end zone here? We have like 5 seconds. This is the game. The fact that you are at least easily within range to throw it up here, and you decide to run the ball and run out of bounds with the game on the line, and clearly, which it wasn't like a bang, bang, I stepped out 1 second, and then the clock goes to 0 and it's over. It was 0 seconds for what, 3 or 4 seconds? Like you clearly knew this is the last play of the game. How Tennessee lost, how they operated that final play was inexcusable. What are we doing? What are we doing? Just want to mention that here before we do go, but I'll still leave Tennessee here in the top 10. So myself, Ryan Hickey's top 10 rankings going into week 7 here of college football. Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, 1, 2, 3. Georgia, Penn State, Bama, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10. Indiana, Miami, Clemson, Tennessee. What a weekend. What a weekend we had in college football. It continues to show why it's the best sport on this planet and continues to just leave you in awe of everything you do see. So thank you for joining us here on this Sunday morning. Again, we'll be doing this every single Sunday morning. So if you're just tuning in for the first time, make sure you subscribe to the channel, where not only you can get alerts every time we go live here on Sunday morning, but also every single Thursday morning, I'll drop my Hicks 5-minute picks to get you set for that upcoming weekend. A great slate we got. So especially this weekend, make sure you subscribe to get ready for a big week 7 here in college football. So yeah, enjoy your Sunday, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next week right here, of course, breaking down the sport we love, that is college football.